Well, good afternoon and welcome to Women's Radio 2. I am Pat Barrett, and this is our day to be with Christine Baumgartner, our resident relationship guru. And today we're going to, I'm not sure where she's going to take this, but it sounds very interesting. This is one time when we didn't discuss it ahead of time, so it's going to be a very interesting afternoon. So the title is Say What You Mean and Mean What You Say. So I'm not sure how she's going to apply that, but it's going to be a fun ride. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Pat. It always is a fun ride with you. We
It
always
is.
have a nice
Yes.
time
And
chatting.
you. Yep. So where are you starting with that? And are you going to apply it to like men and women or just in general, or what's your idea?
Well, we have talked about this part of it before that lots of women, especially in our age group, were taught when they were younger to always be nice and not upset people. And so we were taught not to say our truth in the most truthful way. We were taught to kind of talk around it and make sure it came out in the nicest way and that people would not be offended or their feelings would not be hurt. And we didn't like our feelings being hurt. But that led us to not saying the whole truth or even partial the truth sometimes. One of my favorite things I've heard recently is when somebody says, bless your heart, that apparently that's really kind of an insult when you're from the South, that they mean you're really being very stupid. You said a stupid thing, you're acting stupid, that they don't really mean it positive at all. But they say it with a nice smile and, looking very pleasant while they're saying it. And they really mean you dope. You're being a dope, or maybe a worse word than that. And so I think there's ways to be direct and say your mind and say what's really going on for you without being mean. Oh, Miss Gigi's decided to show up today for Zoom. Hi.
It's interesting. She doesn't join us very often.
No, she likes being part of the podcast. I think she likes Barry's voice, but she doesn't show up for this very often. So, what happens is we often think, well, I need to second guess. If somebody says, oh, sure, I'm fine doing that, which we women will say a lot, and we really aren't fine doing it. We really aren't. We really don't want to do it, but we do it anyway. So, how amazing would it be to say, I really don't want to do it, but I understand this is a big commitment and I'm going to do it anyway. And I really need you to appreciate it because I'm making a big effort to do it. Wouldn't that be kind of refreshing if somebody really said
Yeah,
that?
really. I'd really
Or
love to
how
hear somebody say that. I think that that's really being totally honest, don't you?
and how empowering it would be to say your truth about,
Yeah, wouldn't it?
I don't understand why we're doing this and it just seems kind of silly.
And then you really feel gratified if the other person says, "I totally agree with you. I just didn't want to say anything."
Isn't that? I've watched that happen sometimes when
Yeah,
people were brave about saying it. And
yeah.
you're taking it on yourself. You're not saying the other people are making stupid decisions. You're not saying it's a stupid decision. You're just saying, I'm having trouble suiting up for this. I just can't really get on board. What is really help me understand the purpose? Or, gosh, I need to just do this because I'm going to take one for the team. And see, there's all these wonderful sayings that you can say around it that seem pretty benign and not upsetting to people, but we don't give ourselves permission often enough to do that. And then one of the other things that women often do, because it's just how we are, is that we think while we're talking. We, how does that sound? Oh, no, I didn't really mean that. I meant this. And it's not that we can't make up our mind, and it's not that we don't know what we're talking about. Generally, we're kind of testing it. We're seeing how did that feel when it came out? What kind of sense did we have? And how's the other person reacting when we're talking? So if you say, okay, I want to brainstorm this, or I'm still thinking about it. I'm not really there yet. Even though it's kind of a normal, natural thing for us to speak this way as women, it would be really empowering for us to say that. And it would be less frustrating for the person listening, especially if they're a man, whether it's in business or in your personal life. Because generally, I always have to say in general, because there are exceptions, men typically think about what they're going to say And nobody's better or worse. We just do this differently. And so if you know that as women, we're talking to flesh it out, to say, oh yeah, I didn't mean that at all. It really was this. Now that I've heard myself say that, I don't mean that. That if men knew that that's what we're doing, they don't get so frustrated because they keep looking for what's the truth, what's the point. And the sad thing is that when men tell us something that they've thought and they really mean it, we sometimes don't believe them because we're not always telling the truth because of all this background, not because we're bad people. And I know there's going to be women that are going, I only tell the truth all the time. Well, good for you. That was my mom. My mom came in her head, came out her mouth, good or bad, hard or soft, important and interesting or so hurtful. Was a challenge for my softness to live with somebody like that. And I respected that. I always knew where I stood, though. Always. You always knew if she was happy with you or not happy with you because she just said it. So men get very frustrated when we aren't upfront with them about, I'm just still thinking about this because it's just our normal way of doing. And they get frustrated when we don't believe what they're saying because we don't agree, we don't think they're right. So you're welcome to not agree or think they're not right, but they are telling you the truth. So don't argue that they're lying because majority of them are not lying. They just are saying something that you don't agree with. And the other thing I've learned recently is I knew how important feeling connected is for women because it's safety. We're safety in numbers. We like having a best friend. We
The
like having
safety's at the
somebody
top of the heap.
so important to feel connected. And that when somebody disagrees with us, male or female, it feels like it's pulling apart the connection. So we know that just because a man is disagreeing with us, he has a different of opinion. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to be connected to you, and it doesn't mean he's not safe to be connected. You just need to find out, can you get to a middle ground?
Hmm.
But it's one of the things I've noticed when people are so adamant about, I cannot date this political party because I am this political party, that they feel like they absolutely have to have this connection. And maybe they really do because of whatever the beliefs are. But if you look at this as the reason why we have this need, that we wouldn't use everything across the board, that we have to be the same, that it's okay to be different, that you can have some opposite thoughts, you can have some opposite viewpoints, and it doesn't mean you can't be connected. But the only way that can happen is if both sides are saying bravely, this is what I believe. This is how I believe. Do you hear that? Can you accept that I believe this? Not trying to change your mind. Are you okay being with somebody who believes this? And then they get to say, well, I believe something really different. And can you be okay with being somebody who believes different? Because that's the conversation to have, not just what side of the aisle you're on, I think.
I wanted to interject something here because that really touched something for me. When my husband and I first met, I I had met a spiritual master. I had learned to meditate. I did things that were outside of the comfort zone for my entire family. So you can imagine if I meet someone and I'm getting along with them really well, that before I go any further than that, I need to own up to what's really important to me. So that's exactly the way I approached it too. And I said, I feel like I need to tell you that I meditate. If that bothers you, you should tell me now, right? And that's pretty straightforward, don't you think?
Very
And
perfect.
and he said, "Oh no, I meditate too." And I said, "You do?" I just couldn't believe it. And he
What a
said, "Oh,
great
yes, my mother and I
answer.
went together and learned how to meditate." And I said, "You did?" I was like totally impressed because at that point, you just didn't meet that many people that you could say that to and that would have that kind of response. So you never know when it's good to, you know, stand up and tell the truth, right?
See the benefit of being brave?
Yep,
It's a
it
huge
was.
benefit to be brave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it was really important throughout I mean, it's not like we got up at 6 a.m. and sat together and meditated. We didn't do that. But we both had this really deep spiritual sense. And maybe we got it in different ways. I guess we did. And that part was important. And I think it also gave us a basis for having deeper conversations too. So
And the deeper conversation can also happen because you were brave and he was
that's
brave.
right.
And even if you said, and I'm not into it, but I'm fine that you are, I'd love to hear more about it, but I
Right.
can't imagine ever doing it. That'd be fine.
Yep.
It still
Absolutely.
gave you get credit and kudos and good feelings inside of you that you were brave just to put it out there.
Right.
And think how nervous he was to say, as a man, oh, by the way, I meditate.
I know. Never asked him about that, and I thought that too. I thought, wow, you know, but at least I started the conversation.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, one person has to be brave. It's so funny when I'm talking to my clients on the phone, they'll say, well, how come I have to go first? And I said, because I'm talking to you. If I could beam it to the other person, I could charge a whole bunch more money, and I would like to have that skill, but I can't. So I need to start with you.
yep.
But trust me, even just the conversation you're going to have with whoever the significant person is, your employee, your boss, your kid, your significant
Right.
romantic other, the goal of this is that you feel better because you spoke your truth.
You know, another thing someone else told me that I think has been good advice is um, always tell the truth, but always tell the truth sweetly. I don't always do that. I am a really emotional or I emote. And if I'm not happy about something, I emote that, you know.
Mhm.
So I think that my goal right now is to learn to not be so vehement in my emoting about things that don't please me, as it were. Um, and people who take up my time are one of those when they just definitely just like it didn't matter. Oh, let me put you on hold. Oh, I was 15 minutes. Oh, I didn't seem like that long. You know, things like that. You want to go. But I think that there is always a good way to say what you need to say to someone. If you can just remember, say your truth sweetly. That there's a nice way to say what you need to say, whether it's to an employee or to your boss or to your husband or your wife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
People tell me, so I get to say it out loud, that I'm one of the most diplomatic people they've ever met. And
It's
I can
true.
come up with the nicest way to say most things, but say things in a really crappy way too. And what I've learned from men, it's so fascinating because I get to poll all these men that I'm coaching. Certainly their preference is to start out in a kind way and an understand, did you mean it that way? I'm curious and geez, it
Well, you're
sounded
pointing out
hard.
something else. Learn to ask questions. That's another
Yeah.
thing I need to do instead of making statements.
And yes, and they'd rather you say something grouchy than not say it. So
That's
they'd rather you say it nicely. And truly, as hard as it is on them to displease us, if there's a solution to be had, they'd much rather you just blurt it out. If you can't think of a nice way to say it, you're just on your last nerve and you just can't say one nice thing, just blurt it out. And they can take it. We don't need to baby them. We don't want a man in our life that we need to baby and mother. Just don't make that a constant,
habit.
yeah, no. Yeah, it can't be a habit. But don't hold back. If it's something that's really important and you feel like a big crab already, but you just need to, I'm just going to get it out.
Maybe things that yield that much emotion really deserve to have a little more thought. I mean, do you counsel people that maybe it's a good idea to like keep a little journal, write it down, and then try and find some ways that you could express that to someone
They
without?
send me a text. Can I say this nicer? Yeah. Yeah. And then we have some keywords to start because that's the thing. Yes, there are times we just know they might be having this really strong opinion, the other person. At least verify before you jump all over them. I'm curious, just what's behind that? And then if they tell you something really negative, you're like, well, okay, thanks for telling and thanks for verifying. And now I can tell you I think you're a big poop because of that. But don't just jump on somebody until you've verified.
I have a question for you. I'm just full of them today, aren't I?
I love
Uh,
it. I love questions.
um, I I have learned about two people, sisters, who have had a big falling out because they have different political views. Now, I wasn't there to hear anything that went on, but when one sister tells another sister that she never wants to hear from her again, and they've been really close, I mean, even as an outside observer, makes me feel really bad.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if we couldn't all learn how to, uh, maybe part of it, Christine, is asking questions, which you have pointed out before. Ask questions rather than make statements about this is true and this is true. No, it's not. No, it's not. That usually seems to be how it goes. And, but if people are armed with the facts and those facts are important to them and they say them, and the other person doesn't like it, what can I say? Too bad. But what do you advise people? Do you have couples that have different political views? How do they manage in their conversations? Do they just avoid that subject or they just
Okay.
avoid it?
Sometimes they come up with an agreement and then they keep revisiting the agreement. Is it still working for you? So some people, they just never talk about it. They have so many other things they talk about, so many other fulfilling things in their relationship together, so many other things that bring them close and fulfilling that the political part. And they both have, if they need, they have other people they can talk to. And then there are people that they've come to the agreement that, boy, I really need to talk about this, and I'm not trying to change your mind, and I'm really not, don't want to hear your opinion and about what I'm saying, but I want to hear your opinion about this part of the subject. And they can do that. And then they, no hotheads, no name calling, no assuming. Because what we often do is start assuming, well, I know that this means that you're like that, or I know that you believe this. Then they like, did they say that? Do you have evidence? My latest thing is if you were
Right.
in front of a judge and there was a table that you put the evidence on, you would not win your case because you really don't have the evidence. You're making lots of assumptions. So that's when you'd start to ask, wow, or gosh, it seems like maybe, is this the direction you're going? Please help me understand that. Or is this is what I heard. Is that really what you meant? But what happens is the lack of connection or the feeling personal personally attacked,
Mhm.
which sometimes people are attacking, but most of the time not. So if we could stop taking so much personally and
Really?
just check. Yeah, what I've learned in the dating thing, because people go, people tell me I'm too picky. And so I'll look at their list and I'll say, well, from what I know, having talked to you, I think you're picky about the things that aren't important and you're not picky about the things that are important.
Ah.
And that might be why you're really frustrated. So if you say, here's a boundary that I have, and I can't listen to this kind of a conversation, or I can't have this kind of conversation, are you okay with that? And the other person has to say, uh-huh. And then if
Right.
it comes up, oh, they slip, you're like, remember we have this agreement? Oh, yeah, right. Or they can't work out a relationship. You just can't. So it
Well,
takes two yeses, but it doesn't have to be the same yes. It has to be the whatever the agreement is, we're both agreeing.
that brings up kind of we're on a roll in this. If you know that you're going to disagree with someone, is there any way to learn, and I'll go back to the political thing again. Is there any way to say, well, could we set ground rules about what we can
Hmm.
enter into the conversation? I mean, saying this, you have to be able to state your source, or I mean, whatever you choose as the ground rules. Some people can memorize all that stuff. I'm not one of those people, but um, It seems a shame that so many people are cut off from other people because of that one issue. And I just feel like in that case, when you say what you mean, I mean, part of it might be I just can't. I hear what you're saying, but I think it would be better for me not to enter into that conversation. Do you teach some of your clients how to get out of having to put themselves in a position of being in opposition to someone they like or whatever, or their
Need
family
to,
members?
so you, as you're getting family members, you've got a history with them, so we need to do some backpedaling. But a brand new person in your life, you start out from the beginning with whatever the really important things are for you. This is who I am. Just telling you who I am.
Hmm.
What do you think about that? Would you be okay spending more time with somebody that's like this? And
Hmm.
now tell me in the same vein about you. And am I comfortable? And
Hmm.
how interesting to find out, boy, you're both on the same page. And then if you're not on the same
Yes, right.
page, are you okay enough? It has to be okay enough. It can't be, I can't respect you. I can't ever listen to you. It can't be, um, I think you're stupid because you believe that. That's not okay enough. That's
Right.
below the okay enough line. So that's when mean what you say and say what you mean about, because it's so funny, my big thing is I tell people I bring a lot of stuff when I travel. And I just tell them ahead
You
of time.
have no idea, right?
I tell them that, and they all go, until I show up with my three things that latch together that I can zoom through the airport by myself. I'm happy to have help. And they go, wow. Because I tell them I bring all this stuff, and you need to not complain. You need to be okay enough to not complain because I can't travel with anymore. I tried it and it was so bad, and I stopped a long time ago. I just say, if you're going to complain, we can't travel. We can
Mhm.
do local stuff, but I can't travel with you if you're going to complain.
Right,
I'm
right.
not going to ask you to do anything with it, but you don't get an opinion. You don't get a vote because I'm sure you're going to have something that I'm going to go, well, I wouldn't do it that way, but I need to be okay enough with it.
Well, just
So,
because you wouldn't do something a certain way doesn't mean that it's really harming you in any way. If they want to do it, and it has nothing really to do with you, you know.
and having somebody just having, wow, that's really interesting. And wow, I bet it, and I tell them, if you need anything, I'm going to tell you I have it. You need a Band-Aid or sew on a button,
Right.
and no complaining. So I started doing that before I met my late
It does
husband and
make a
told
trip
him
really difficult if people complain. And
it's so useful.
there's so much you can complain about because every on a trip, a lot of things are so new. They're not the way you've always learned to do it, etc. So people can complain or they can take it as a new adventure, I think.
And I'm very cognizant of what kind of transportation. I take the whole trip into consideration. And there's been a couple times I said, I can't do that. I won't be able to do that. Limits myself for sure. Like I can't drive cross country. I don't do well in a car for a long time. I said, I know
Oh.
I miss lots of stuff because I fly, but I don't feel bad about it. And if it's really important to you to drive and stop and camp, I'm not your girl. We
Right,
can have all
right,
sorts of other things we like about each other, but I can't do that.
right.
And so if you have
I'm
this
so
thing,
glad you told me, Christina.
in case you ever wanted to go camping with me. So if in fact you have these things that are your quirky idiosyncrasies things, then how nice that you say, this is just who I am. It's like my brown eyes. And I'm happy with this. I'm fine with this. I
Hmm.
like to find somebody who's fine enough about it. My husband
Hmm.
was fine about it. He could have cared less about how much stuff I brought. He thought
Hmm.
it was kind of cute and he was happy to get the suitcases out 3 days ahead of time. So when you know who you are, like I know I have friends that pride themselves that I don't care where they go and how long they're going to be gone, it's carry on. I'm in awe. I'm in awe, but it's not me.
I feel the same way. I'm thinking, how did you do
I know.
that?
But I
Of
love
course,
hearing.
most of those people are not women, I'll point
I've
out.
had a couple that have gone a long ways and for a while, and they said, "Well, there's laundry." I go, "I like." So I'm not going to make excuses. I like options. I like having all my personal things.
I'm very much like that too.
So don't travel with me if it's going to be a problem for you. I'm okay with that
Well,
because I
talk
don't want to
about
make your trip uncomfortable, and it would certainly make my trip uncomfortable.
one of my long-term friends enjoys going to India.
Mhm.
Well, I really like India. And so we had talked about planning a trip to India. And after I went with my husband on a hike up in the uh, mountains in California, I and then I ended up carrying a 55-pound backpack up a practically a straight incline, and I nearly killed myself coming down. And I said, well, I helped him check something off of his bucket list, but on my bucket list is a trip to India. And I went straight when I got home. I called my friend first thing. I said, do you still want to go to India? And she said, yes. And I said, well, make the
Okay.
plan. And she's a great planner, by the way, because she knows what she wants to see. And it's one of the few times where I really have no opinion because I'm just happy to be there.
Mhm.
And so she did all the planning. And we never, in 2 weeks, riding in cars that go over bumpy roads and dust and goodness only knows everything that happened, Neither one of us complained, not one time. Neither one of us had any disagreement about anything the whole time. I don't know that I could do that with so many people, but it just worked out well. And it made
You
it
live with the
really
right
great trip.
attitude.
Hmm?
Yeah. You both had the right attitude.
I think that that really is a lot of it. I mean, we both really like that country, and we realize that it's more difficult. It's not, you're not going to ride on smooth roads and et cetera, et cetera. Well,
So, how do we create realistic expectations in all the
yes,
areas of our life? And then you
yes.
say, this is what my realistic expectation is. And you see is the other person's. Because I talk to people who say, well, doesn't everybody act like this? I just assume they would stop that. Say, this is the way I do it and the way that makes me comfortable. What do you think about that? And they go, oh gosh, I would never do it that way. That's not at all how I'm comfortable. And how good to know that ahead of
Yes.
time.
Well, I think we ought to draw a line under that and then pick that up in our next opportunity.
Sounds perfect.
So these are my expectations, and I think that these are ways that we can all learn through this kind of discourse other ideas about how you can handle certain conversations. And going back to the political one, there was a person that I had known for several years, I'd say 4 or 5 years at least. And all of a sudden, he was pulling me into political conversations and then telling me how stupid I was. And like, oh, you poor thing. And I can't even begin to tell you how
Awful.
that goes across my last hair. But I just cut him right out.
Good.
And
Yeah.
I don't even feel bad about it. Because I think someone who's going to use something like that they clearly don't know as well as they think they do, and then and go out of their way to make someone feel small and helpless, as it were, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I think that is not say what you mean.
I choose to not have bullies in my life, and that sounded like a bully to me.
Yes, I think so too. So,
Well, thank you.
well,
It's always a
um,
delight.
I know it is, and I think that I love these where we're going back and forth, and there's so much. It seems like so much to learn, and there is, and there is. As
Yeah,
somebody said, English is not a precise language.
that's the
Maybe
truth.
it is. Maybe I just don't know enough words, but
Maybe.
but I think it really is important to really aim at being clear, coming, like you said, coming from what's true for you,
Yep.
learning to say that in a way that's not going to hurt somebody else's feelings. And if you do kind of cross the line, you'd be big enough to say, I really knew better than to even bring this up because I get very animated and so forth and so on. I I think all these things are good to be reminded of.
And what
Because
can you be flexible about and what can't you? Just
can't
be
you?
really clear
Right.
about it. So get clear with
Exactly.
yourself and then tell the other person in the nicest way possible.
Yes.
This nice, direct way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And still saying what you mean.
Mhm. Absolutely. Don't
Very
sacrifice
good.
that.
Well, thank you again, once again, for a great conversation.
It's always a
And
pleasure.
please, anybody who's watching, uh, let us know what are issues for you. What kind of issues would you like Christine to talk about? Things that you wouldn't ask anybody else, maybe, but you can
It'll
certainly
be
ask
just
me, or
between
we
us.
won't even know that it was you. So
Nope.
please let us know. It's womensradio@gmail.com is one email. We'll put it in the conversation as well when we publish it. Thank you so much for coming today, Christine. Thank you for once again
You're welcome.
entering into this great conversation, and we'll see you again real soon.
Okay. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.